y'all? It is your boy, Gardi3, and welcome to Coffee and Sports, the morning show. And of course, joining us is the pillar of Coffee and Sports. He is Mo Better. How you doing, Mo?
Hey, good morning, Brett. Morning, chat. Let's talk some sports.
Now, I'll be honest with y'all, it's going to be mainly NFL today, but not going to lie, Mo. I got to ask you one quick NBA question. Have we ever seen any? Because I was watching highlights of a really random role player last night, and you'll appreciate this. Has anybody given you an angrier 6 points a game than Quincy Acey? I was watching some Quincy Acey highlights last night, and I don't think I've ever seen anybody give you an angrier 6 points and like 6 rebounds a game. Truly intense player.
I didn't check it out, but I did see on social media some of the sentiments that you said. So I'm definitely gonna have to go back and look at the highlights if he's mean mugging and that many people are talking about him.
No, yeah, he's so funny to watch because he really just mean mugs everybody. And you think like, oh, he must be on like point 20. No, that was his like third bucket of the game. They're up like by 10, and he's just bringing that intensity. So shout out to Nets legend Quincy Acey. But why not get right into the game last night, Mo? Cowboys, Lions. This is a game to me where it felt like we almost had two losers. Let me explain what I mean by that. Cowboys lost. Their season's done. They have a 9% chance to make the playoffs. They can still do it. Odds are not great. The Lions won. Now they have a 55% chance to make the playoffs. They're kind of cooking. But can the secondary really overcome losing Brian Branch, who they pretty much said that they already fear that it's an Achilles. So it sounds like not only he can be done for this year, but an injury this late, that could linger into next year. So I don't know, Mo. It's felt like one of those games where there was a winner, but both teams, it feels like both teams in one way or another kind of lost last night.
That's the way I read it. The Branch injury to me, it's uncanny how Detroit can have so many injuries, and most of them tend to be on defense for whatever reason. And I think this injury to a secondary and a defense that was already a little depleted, it just puts more onus on the offense to have to score more because the defense is going to have that much more difficult time stopping other offenses. It's a weird thing. Detroit, they're like right in the middle of this run, and yet you feel like the run is kind of stagnated. I think it's a difficult task ahead, not for them to make the playoffs, but for them to go on a deep run in the NFC. So I'm with you. I think they have a really good shot to make the postseason, but I think their ultimate goal, what Campbell and company want to do, is obviously win the NFC. I think with their defense being so depleted, I just don't think they'll be able to do it.
Yeah, it's just something that happened. It happened to the Lions last year, where they by the time they made it to the playoffs, they were just so banged up and depleted that they just kind of didn't have the juice to take on the Commanders at that point. And then we're starting to see it again this year. It just seems like it's the toll playing for, Dan Campbell. He's aggressive. He wants to play physical. But this is another year where it just seemingly is starting to catch up to the guys late. So I'm not exactly sure how they kind of try to figure out this almost seemingly issue every year of just losing key guys late. It's unfortunate, right? Because look, obviously I'm a Green Bay Packers fan, but I don't want to see anybody banged up. I want to see everybody make it to the playoffs healthy. If I beat Detroit to the playoffs, I want to do it when they're at 100%. So I do hope that they figure out this almost like curse or seemingly injury issue they seem to have every year, where we're about to get ready for clutch time, and all of our star players are going down now.
Look, I'm with you. You root for your favorite team. You admire other teams and players from afar, What I don't want is I don't want to beat somebody when they're not at their best. And I definitely don't wish injury on anybody. As a fan, I want to see the best versions of the Lions put out there. It just seems uncanny that every time around the middle of the season, um, the injury bug bites them, and it doesn't bite them a little bit. It takes a huge chunk out of them, and it's usually almost always on the defensive side of the football. I it's tough, and they're in a tough division because of your Packers, because of the Bears. Every game is like a playoff game for them going forward. So while I'm not necessarily a Lion fan, I hate that they have to deal with these injuries the way they've had the last couple of years.
Oh, absolutely. And speaking of games being like a playoff game, Mo, this week we have a ton of games with playoff implications in the NFL. I figure why not go through and give our NFL predictions for each game this week? Who do you think's going to win? Just because there's so many games that matter this week. Like this 12 o'clock slate. The first two games that catch my eye, Mo. Bengals, Bills. If the Bengals want to make the playoffs, they need to beat Buffalo. They need a win here in the worst way. The real question is, Mo, do you think Burrow can do it? Burrow and the Bengals? They just had that impressive win versus the Ravens on Thanksgiving.
Look, I think Joe Burrow, when he's upright, can do anything. The sky's the limit. He's that elite a quarterback. The Bengals defense has been, at least, if nothing else, competitive, more opportunistic. If they've got their full complement offensively, look, the Bengals have more offensive talent than than the Bills do. You look at the Bills and it's Josh Allen, and then there's their running back, right? That's pretty much the sum of their offense. They have good receivers, but there is no definable number one who you can rely on game in and game out. I think their best weapons are their tight ends, and they're injured. I think this is going to be a close football game, and if it stays close late, I'm going to favor the Bengals. Given a choice between Josh Allen and Joe Burrow, I'm still going to take the edge to Joe Burrow.
No, absolutely. I agree. I think this is going to be a Bengals victory. It's going to be tough, but I think this might be the best game in the 12 o'clock slate. It's at least going to be up there.
I think so,
But
too.
this is also a big game for the Bills, right? People talk about, the Bengals playoff hopes. The Bills are the last wild card seed. And guess what? The Texans are nipping right on their heels. So a Bills loss and a Texans win gives them the same exact record. That makes things really interesting going forward. So it's a game where everybody's going to be looking at like, yeah, the Bengals need to win, for playoff aspirations. This also feels like a must-win for the Bills because you can't really be, losing games this late when you have a team like the Texans who are now all of a sudden hot, nipping right at your heels.
Look, agreed. With the records, not just in the divisions, but in the conferences being so close, I feel like from this day forward, every game, if you're in the hunt, is a playoff game, right? Like, we would have a few weeks back, we wouldn't have dreamed that the Bills and the Bengals would kind of be in the same position, but they're in the same position. The Bills have faltered; they haven't been nearly as good as they started, and the Bengals have surged, obviously, with the return of Joe Burrow. Every game to me in the AFC is a playoff game. And I love that because the winners, the people who win the most when games are that intense and that meaningful, are the fans.
Absolutely, and it's funny with the Texans. That's also feels like a must-win game for both teams. We have the Texans who have who are nipping, like we said, right at the Bengals' heels, 7-5, and the Bills are 8-4. Well, guess what? They're facing the Chiefs this week. The Chiefs are 6-6, right behind the Texans. If they win, it puts them on even footing record-wise. And if you're the Texans, as well as you've been playing lately, I doubt you want to get into a foot race at the end of the year for a playoff spot with the Chiefs. So, Mo, Chiefs Texans. Do you think the Texans pull it out? And for the Chiefs, if you lose this one, it's going to be really tough to claw your way back into a playoff spot at that point.
So let's start off with the obvious. Texans have a great defense. If they have an Achilles heel, it's the inconsistency of their offense. But if let's say their offense puts up 17 points and they don't turn the football over, it's just a tough defensive game. I think the Texans will win. The problem is this, though. I think we can still admit Kansas City still has one of the better defenses in football. Maybe it's not as good as the Texans, but they're like a big game defense. Spags is still, to me, the best DC in football. Knowing what you know about the Texans offense and CJ Stroud and what this means, the magnitude of this game, I'm going to say the Chiefs win a close defensive battle. I'm going to say the Chiefs get at least 2 turnovers off of CJ Stroud.
Yeah, I'm going to lean Kansas City this one, and I think Andre also makes the other great point. Games at Arrowhead, that's one of the toughest environments to play in. And I think we're going to see a desperate Chiefs team. And a desperate Chiefs team that's just fighting for their playoff lives is a scary Chiefs team. I think the Texans obviously are a scary team too, but I don't think the Chiefs are going to pull any punches. I think if they have any tricks up their sleeve, they're going to empty them out on Sunday because, yeah, this is it. This feels like their season this Sunday. They couldn't afford to lose to Dallas, and then they lost to Dallas. So now it feels like every game from here on out is must win. But the Texans, last thing you want to do is hand them the tiebreaker over you.
Correct.
So I'm going to lean Kansas City because I think they'll understand the magnitude of this game for their playoff hopes. And it being an Arrowhead.
That's where I'm leaning towards. I think Kansas City has been in these tough situations before. I think they understand that this game, to me, is very much their season. And they're an Arrowhead. I don't think you have to have an MVP Mahomes performance. He just has to outperform CJ Stroud, which I think he'll do.
Say another game with playoff aspirations. The talk of the town for the first 8 weeks, the Indianapolis Colts. Well, now we're in the dog days, and they've hit a bump in the road, and now all of a sudden they found themselves in a 3-way dogfight in the division. Colts, Jags, and Texans are all nipping at each other's heels. Well, Colts, Jaguars this Sunday. Once again, this game is very important for both teams because, hey, you want to give yourself the tiebreaker over the other one. So they actually play each other twice in the next couple weeks. So both games will be of massive importance. But Mo, who do you think takes this first one? Do the Colts maybe figure it out here and be who they were the first 8 weeks, or do you think that these last couple weeks have showed who they really are?
I think the Colts need to stop this slide. And we can all agree they've lost in the last couple of weeks. But if you saw those games, it's not like the other team dominated them or blew them out. They're in those games. They're competitive in those games, but they haven't been able to make the big play late. And the imposing defenses has done a terrific job of shutting down Jonathan Taylor. And that's really the key. If you can control Jonathan Taylor and make them be more one-dimensional, relying slowly on Danny Dimes, that's a recipe that would favor your team. In the bigger picture, though, I think the Jaguars have been very good, and I want to give Trevor Lawrence credit. I think he's been rock solid, had a good season. They found ways to win games that I thought they would lose. This is a big game, and I think all the momentum leans towards the Jaguars, but like the theme has been this morning, I very much believe that this game is a make or break game for the Colts. So I'm going to lean towards the Colts.
I think Andre's correct here. I'm going to lean Jaguars on this one. It feels like that the Colts season kind of took a turn for the worse when Daniel Jones got hurt. now all of a sudden, the mobility from Jones isn't exactly there. All of a sudden, he just isn't making throws like he used to. It's hard for him to, step into these because obviously it's a leg injury. So I just think that the Colts peaked, and at this point they might completely fall out of the playoffs. That remains to be seen, but I'm going to go with the Jags here. I think they're the hot team, and I don't know if I can trust Daniel Jones and the Colts right now. I just think that leg injury is just bothering him too much. So I'll lean Jacksonville on this one. And then we do have another playoff implication. What's up, by the way? What's up, Key, Kyle, Andre, Kurum? We appreciate you all for being here. You do have one more game in the 12 o'clock slot that's playoff implication worthy. It's crazy that we have like 4 big games right away at 12 o'clock. But the age-old rivalry, Steelers-Ravens, we've seen the Steelers are kind of unraveling now. We got Aaron Rodgers doing the Aaron Rodgers special. My franchise goat is calling people out, going, I don't want to throw people under the bus, which is what he always says seconds before he's about to throw somebody under the bus. Funniest thing he does. Yeah, I don't want to throw anybody under the bus, but Jonnu Smith was supposed to run an in-breaker. People aren't showing up to film study it. So I guess the real question, do you think the Steelers stop their slide, or do you think the Ravens bounce back after a rough loss to the Bengals?
These division games, especially when you look at the records of these two teams, the flaws that both offenses have and both defenses have, my gut feeling is that the Ravens will win this football game. The Steelers offense is inept at best, and that defense, even though the Ravens defense isn't perfect, I think the Ravens offense can move the football on that defense. I think the Ravens win a tough, low-scoring game.
Yeah, I agree. I know Lamar wasn't a full participant in practice yesterday, but look, when you're as long as he plays, I think the Ravens wins. I think it makes it more interesting if it's Tyler Huntley, but even then, the Steelers defense has just been a lot more gettable than it's been in the past few years. I think the Steelers team, it just seemed like they're in desperate need of a blue chip prospect to start building the next iteration of their team around. I like TJ Watt. He's getting old. I like guys like Cam Hayward. He's old. On offense, obviously, you won't really hear me bad mouthing Aaron Rodgers ever. He's old. So I feel like this is an aging football team that they just need to start trying to figure out, all right, who's going to be on the next version of the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I think that starts this offseason, and they take a deep, long look at themselves after a loss to the Ravens here.
I think so, too. I think the winner of this game is going to make the playoffs, probably win the division, but at least make the playoffs. I think whoever loses this game doesn't make the playoffs.
No, fair enough. And of course, maybe the biggest game of the weekend, because this could very well be for the 1 seed in the NFC this week. Packers-Bears. Obviously, the Bears are coming off an impressive win versus Philadelphia. Packers are coming off an impressive win versus the Lions, both on Thanksgiving. So, no, sorry, I guess one was on Black Friday, but Mo, Packers or Bears?
I'm the kind of guy that I'm always going to lean towards the team with the stouter defense. That would be the Packers. With the pass rush, that would be the Packers. What the Bears do very well offensively, they run the football. A lot has been said about Caleb Williams, but really the way this offense is structured and the way they move the football is they run the football. Caleb Williams is a complement to their run game. He's got one job: don't turn the football over. I think Green Bay's defense is not going to allow Chicago to run the football up and down the field. I think Caleb Williams is going to have to put the ball in the air. He's going to put the ball in harm's way, and I think the Packers get a couple of turnovers off of him. I've got Green Bay winning the game. I don't think it's going to be that close. I'm going to say 27-17.
Yeah, it's one of those things. Ben Johnson has our number. Hey, we were competitive in both games versus the Lions last year, so here's the thing. I'm actually happy that the Bears are good again. And here's why. People talk about rivalry. Well, Packers and Bears haven't really been a rivalry, it feels like, in a decade now, because when Green Bay is just, for the most part, kicking Chicago's teeth in for a decade, at some point, really stops being a rivalry. It's just kind of sad at that point. So the fact that the Bears are good again, it finally gives Packers Bears a big game feel. Like now this truly feels like a rivalry game for like the first time in
a long time,
almost a decade. So of course I'm gonna lead with my Packers. It's gonna be a tough one, but that being said, I think you kind of touched on it earlier. This is a Bears team that's really been excelling, and I think it's in large part to their run game play action. They just gashed the Eagles on the ground. Packers have been great at stopping the run. Now, it's going to be tough. Obviously, Devontae Wyatt is out for the year, but even in his absence last time, we didn't really struggle to stop the run because we do have other guys like Stackhouse, Brooks. So I think it'll be tough. I think it'll be a fun game. I think I'll give us the win 23-17. But I'm actually excited that the Bears are good again because welcome back to the oldest rivalry in sports. It finally feels like a rivalry again. That being said, we're going to kick your teeth in on Sunday.
But you make a great point. The Bears and Packers being good again at the same time, it's been a minute, especially for the Bears side of it. And so, I think this is a big spot. It's a big opportunity for both of the young quarterbacks, especially Caleb Williams, because I do think he's going to be challenged once they control the run game. So, look, we're going to find out just how good this Bears team is. I'm impressed with their run game. I'm impressed with their offensive line's run blocking. I'm impressed that Caleb Williams has done a really good job of not turning the football over like he had in past seasons. So it sets up for a great matchup. I still think Green Bay's defense will be the tell of the tape ultimately.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, I'm actually I'm going to give all the credit in the world to the Bears because I feel like they actually deserve this, right? Because before the season started, this was a team that you ask a lot of people, and they're like, well, I can maybe see them beating the Vikings. Maybe they finish third in the division, but maybe the Vikings are still better than them if J.J. McCarthy amounts to something. So they'd still have a really good chance to be last. And now look at them. They're fighting for first in the division, and not even just in the division, first in the entire NFC. So Caleb Williams has taken a great leap. So as much as it's rivalry week, still a fan of the game altogether. And I would be remiss if I didn't give the Bears credit for, their improvements this year. Ben Johnson changing the culture. And, the Monday night game, man, this is big. Eagles-Chargers. Eagles are, they're sliding at the worst time. This feels like a reverse version of 2023, right?
Oh, yeah.
2023, we watched their defense just get picked apart. Now it's the offense that is just kind of holding them back and getting picked apart. They face, of course, a Chargers team that's also attempting to fight for their playoff lives. They're chilling at 8-4. So they got the Texans potentially with a victory on Sunday. Now all of a sudden you got the Chiefs in the mix. We got one team that feels like trying to right the ship in the Eagles. I don't think they're in any danger of losing the East. And we got another team that's just fighting for their playoff lives. So who do you think figures it out? Do the Eagles kind of course correct here? Or is it the Chargers figuring it out?
First of all, let me give a shout out to Coach Jim Harbaugh because the Chargers have been ravaged with injuries on both sides of the football, especially on their offensive line. And they still have found ways to ground out wins. So I think the Chargers have grit, as much grit as the Eagles do. Um, Look, this game is going to come down to which quarterback doesn't turn the football over. I really think that. I think the Chargers don't run the football as well as they'd like, obviously, because of the offensive line issue. So Justin Herbert's going to have to be able to attack the Eagles' secondary. The question is, because of the Eagles' pass rush, will he be able to do that? I think this is going to be a good old school physical defensive battle. I want to give a slight edge to the Eagles, but I think it's going to be a close football game. And it's weird to say that because if you look at both teams, I'm just talking about on talent on both sides of the football. Everything was screamed that the Eagles would dominate the Chargers, and I don't think the game's going to play out that way because not the way Harbaugh coaches football. His team is going to be physical now, no matter what, especially at the point of attack. So if I know Saquon Barkley is going to be a non-factor in the run game, I think they're going to come after Hurts. And the question is that offense going to continue to struggle? If the Eagles' offense resembles what it's looked like the last couple of weeks, they're going to lose football game. Plain and simple.
No, absolutely. By the way, welcome in, Damian. Best of luck on Sunday. I'm going to pick the Chargers in this one. It feels like this entire thing that with the Eagles, it feels like it's a coaching issue. It's not a talent issue. The Eagles have talent all over the board. So we can talk about, chemistry. If you want to listen to the chemistry issues potentially between guys like Hurts and A.J. Brown, you can tune into Wire to Wire. The NFL Genius will tell you all about that. I think from, my perspective, just like watching the games without diving too much into chemistry, it just feels like it's coaching. The Eagles' offense is predictable. This is a team that they don't run a lot of crossers. They don't really mix it up a lot. They're running a lot of basic like hitch routes and just go routes. It's just the problem is I feel like you can kind of tell what the Eagles are going to do before they even do it. And when you're tipping off plays and being predictable in the NFL, I think that's a massive issue. It felt like that's a big reason why they lost to the Bears. You can just tell a lot of the times when they're like when you see certain personnel in the game. Okay, it's a run, then they proceed to run it. So I feel like the Chargers win, and it just feels like with the Eagles, they just gotta mix it up and get a little more unpredictable with their play calling, diversify the route tree. You have great offensive talent. You can do so much with that talent. They just seem to stick with the most basic plays and the most basic routes, and they go, okay, it's all good, when in all reality, it's not all good.
I don't disagree with the points you laid out, but we need to factor in that the Eagles' run game has been non-existent the entire season. So we talk a lot about one-dimensional. The Eagles are clearly a one-dimensional team. They have no run game. And that's a strange turn of events considering they had the number one run game in all of football last year. They had a guy who rushed for 2,000 yards. And it's weird because I thought coming into the season, of course he's not going to repeat 2,000 yards, but I thought Saquon's still under 30. He's still in great shape. He's probably going to have a 1,400 yard season. In a 17-game season, Saquon Barkley might not crack 1,000 yards. And that tells you a lot about him and their offensive line because he's averaging under 4 yards a carry. And I don't mean like 3.9. I mean like he's around 3.5. Like they get beat at the point of attack all the time. He's contacted it in the backfield more than he's probably ever been, at least since he's been an Eagle. They're just losing the battle up front. And the fact that they're one-dimensional makes them easier to defend. I don't know if they correct the issues they have in their passing game, but I do know that they can still win games because their defense is still stout. I just think that a game like this game coming up, where it's going to be low scoring and physical, I think Hurts is going to have to use his legs a lot more.
What would hurt more, Packers losing to the Bears, not making the playoffs, or Bucks without Giannis and missing the playoffs? I don't think it'd be the Packers missing the playoffs. I think that one's pretty straightforward. Look, if we lose Giannis, we're not making the playoffs. I'm not worried about that one.
Right.
So it's one of those things.
And by the way, if you lose Giannis, yeah, you're going to be down because you lost Giannis. But then there's going to be a party that goes, yeah, but look at all these picks we got, right? Or look at these assets we got to begin our rebuild, to turn the franchise around and turn another page, right? Like if you don't have Giannis, you're not expected to make the playoffs. And if by some miracle you do, that would be awesome. But you lose Giannis, you're already looking ahead to the future. And everybody that knows ball knows that. The Packers right now are currently one of the best teams in the NFC, and they have a legitimate chance to be in the NFC title game. That, to me, that would be a clearly bigger disappointment.
Absolutely. I think another issue it feels like with the Eagles is that it feels like they're just not using Jalen Hurts on the ground enough. He's currently averaging the least amount of rushing yards he has in his career. Now, granted, the actual least amount he has so far is 354. He's at 329. He'll probably pass 354 before the year ends, but it feels like that was a big part of the Saquon success last year, too. Obviously, you had a more expansive route tree for the receivers that now defenses have to spread around and cover the entire field, but also you had to worry about Jalen Hurts on the ground as well, and that opened up some pretty big lanes. Now, losing guys like Mekhi Becton really hurt him, but it feels like that they could figure out, like, really open up some more lanes by simply maybe calling Jalen Hurts' number a couple more times. I don't think you just have to plunge him into the defense and get him killed, but, maybe calling a couple extra read options a game might just open up some more holes for Saquon.
No, I agree. I think you need to take advantage of Hurts' ability to run the football in certain situations. Look, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I'm pretty sure for most of his career, he's probably averaged 400 or 500 yards running the football the last couple of seasons. And so that was a big aspect of their run game as well that's not there this year. And I don't know if that's by design or just Hurts has just chosen not to take off as much. But I think that he is a valuable weapon, and his legs are a big part of what makes their offense hard to defend when he's using his legs. That said, look, you're going to play against a team like the Chargers, and it's going to be low scoring. It's going to be about who wins the turnover battle, who wins the special teams battle. If you're the Eagles and your run game's not there with Saquon, yeah, you do have to find different ways to bring Hurts into the run game. If the Chargers don't respect the run, they're going to pinch down and press their ears back and come after Hurts anyway when it's on third down. So I think you do have to find different ways to use Jalen Hurts.
Absolutely. Who would have thought that season that Saquon and Jefferson both may not hit 1,000? Yeah, the Justin Jefferson one is wild too. Like, it just feels like it would be so easy to play quarterback in the Vikings offense. Like, all you got to do is get the ball out to these playmakers. But the fact they haven't been able to find a quarterback that can do that is pretty crazy to me, considering the amount of weapons they have.
Now, Justin Jefferson not cracking 1,000 though. We know that's not about him, right? You know what I mean? Like we're not like, man, something's wrong. There's nothing wrong with him. They just have horrible quarterback play. Like I would have made the argument that if they just had comparable quarterback play, he'd be good for an 1,100-1,200 yard season. They have horrible quarterback play.
I think even if they had a guy, for example, who's not necessarily lighting the world on fire, but someone maybe like Tyler Shuck of the Saints, He's already at 1,000 yards. Like,
I'm with
Tyler,
you.
Tyler Shuck's been a gamer. He hasn't been blowing the world away, but he's been more than serviceable. And I think you throw even someone like him on the Vikings, and you have a pretty explosive offense, actually.
I'll go a step further. I'm sure you'll agree with me. If you take Jameis Winston and put Jameis behind center on that Vikings offense, Justin Jefferson is having a 1,400 yard season.
No, absolutely. I watch a lot of Euro League. It's very good, high quality league. Okay, you're actually correct on this one because I've watched Euro League before, and the fans over there go nuts, and I love it. I'm just a big fan of hoops, so a lot of the times I'll find myself up early in the morning watching Australian basketball, Euro League, whatever I can get my hands on. And I got to admit, Euro League atmospheres are a ton of fun.
I tried to watch some basketball games from the league in the Philippines. The feel of it is odd because it feels like when you're watching it, it feels like a street basketball game. It's got like a very chaotic pace to it. Like it looks less about organized basketball and more like street basketball. That's the best way I can describe it.
Absolutely. If the Eagles lose the division, yeah, I think everybody's job is in jeopardy if they lose the division. Like I'm sorry, but with the way the season's going, you're sitting at 8-4. You have a 2-game lead over the Cowboys, and like at this point, it just feels like if you lose out the division to Dallas at this point, yeah, it feels like you got to reevaluate everything if you're the Eagles.
I think everything's on the table. It's not like you said. I don't think it's a talent issue, but it starts at the top, right? There's your head coach, the leadership that he provides, and then there's the guys under him. And with the Eagles, we have to immediately start with their offensive coordinator, because I think he's the biggest problem with their offense. I just think his lack of imagination and the way he simplified the playbook, he's literally played into the defense's hands and said, here's the 3 or 4 things we do well in the passing game. Let's see if you can stop it. And teams have been able to stop it.
Yeah, say it. I do agree. I think almost regardless, unless they do make a crazy Super Bowl run, it just feels like Kevin Patolo's gone. This offense is just underachieved too much. So unless if all of a sudden they get nuclear hot and make some deep playoff run, I think he's just gone. Regardless of the playoff run, JJ has a lot of pressure. He's playing for his job as a starter. You're right, but at the same time, if you can't succeed in the Vikings offense with Kevin O'Connell, who's been great at coaching up quarterbacks, maybe you're just not a starting quality quarterback in the NFL. Like, I'm just going to throw that out there. I was hoping that JJ McCarthy would succeed before the season started, but it already looks like abundantly clear that we're heading towards Josh Rosen territory where it's going to be 1 year and yeah, that's about it. Ironically, I think they were picked with the same pick, 10th overall.
Yeah, look, in that offense with the play caller that they have, I can't make excuses for JJ. Yes, he's a young quarterback, but he hasn't even given them comparable quarterback play. He's been bad, like awful. He looks lost, not ready. When Carson Wentz was in, the offense looked much better. And Carson Wentz, he will throw the football. He will fling the football. He will also throw the football to the other team. And he still looked levels better than JJ. I just think JJ is one of those guys, Brett, that I think he peaked in college. And I'm not saying he won't have an NFL career, but I don't think he's going to be a starting quarterback.
It felt like, he definitely did peak in college. To me, it's just always such a reach with him. I get it, won a national championship, but when you win by like 3 touchdowns and you threw the ball 10 times, that might be a signal that they kind of really didn't need y'all that much. It's one of those things that obviously JJ had a great collegiate career. He had a great, high school career. There's nothing to take away from him, but I think it's already time to start looking at him as okay. Maybe this guy's maybe he can be a backup in this league, but I think his time as a starter is already numbered. He just doesn't have it.
This would be one of the better teams in the NFL if their offense was just middle of the road. They're wasting a well-coached, not surprisingly, defense by Brian Flores and what they can do defensively because the offense is so bad. And I've said this before, I don't care how good your defense is. If your offense goes 3 and out over and over and over, or turns the football over, you can't win that way. And no defense, eventually, when you're playing that many plays, it wears on you. Their offense is their defense's worst nightmare. And it starts with the quarterback. They have to go out and get a quarterback. It's weird to say this, but they're going to be looking for a quarterback again this offseason. JJ's not the guy. Again, I'm not saying he can't have an NFL career, but an NFL career like what? Nick Foles? An NFL career like you just said another guy I remember, Josh Rose, like that kind of career where you kind of bounce around. I don't think JJ McCarthy is a starting NFL quarterback, point blank.
I think he's going to have an NFL career something closer to Trey Lance in all reality. He'll bounce around because it'll be, well, he was drafted high, so the potential's got to be there. I just don't think that potential ever materializes. By the way, I saw the funniest report, Mo, and I immediately kind of laughed. Somebody posted, and this is hilarious to me, the Titans have reportedly not ruled out selecting a quarterback in the upcoming draft. I thought that was the funniest thing ever. I saw that. I'm like, yeah, you know what? I'm immediately selling that because you don't draft a quarterback at number 1 overall and then draft another one the next year. I just thought that report was kind of hilarious.
So that's a fake report. I'm assuming. Because if it's real, if it's real, oh my god! Like you just got Ward. He's in his rookie year. He's in it. I want to say it again. He's in his rookie year. And it's not like you put like a ton of talent around the kid. You have to set your franchise quarterback, even if he's a young guy, you have to set him up for success. And it starts with the requisite talent around him. O-line, wide receivers, running back, maybe a more imaginative offensive play caller. But we can't really be giving up on him after year 1.
Yeah, and it's one of those things. If people want to go, well, in his rookie year, Trevor Lawrence had Urban Meyer, so we're just kind of disregarding that one. I feel like you do the same with Cam Ward. Like he had Brian Callahan, who's like right there, like same level as bad, if not arguably worse than Urban Meyer. Like it's one of those things where Cam Ward is just not set up in a position to succeed this year. So I think if you're the Titans and you get the number 1 overall pick next year, great. That's awesome. You know what I would do? Trade back. Let's try to get multiple picks to build this team around. If you can trade back a couple spots and maybe pick up a offensive lineman and get some extra picks to round out this team, I think that's probably the move for the Titans, especially if they finish worst in the league again.
I agree. You got to build out this roster because they can use help on both sides of the football. And again, you have to get the assets, the playmakers for your young quarterback. Go out and get him a franchise wide receiver or a do-it-all running back. I just think it's too premature now. He's not even done with his rookie season. The idea that they would already be looking at another quarterback to me is insane. I have to believe I'm that this report is false.
No, absolutely. To to think Minnesota had Daniel Jones and Sammy D in the QB room last year.
They did.
You know what's funny? I kind of felt bad that they threw Max Brosmer to the Wolves. Like giving him the first start against the Seattle Seahawks defense is just nuts. I have no clue what they were thinking with that. You have guys like John Wolford on your team. You have Desmond. You had Desmond Ritter on the practice squad. I think the right move would have been to probably go with one of those guys against a incredibly tough Seahawks defense because it feels like they just kind of broke Max Brosmer in the first game. Like putting him against the Seahawks, one of the best defenses in the league on the road, that's just an incredibly difficult ask. And I think you may have just destroyed the young man's confidence before it even got going.
I'm with you. I agree wholeheartedly. And granted, I know they said JJ McCarthy's injured. He wasn't available. But there's other ways you could have went. Um, I, I just feel right now, because of the disarray at quarterback, the Viking season is done. What are you going to do? This is a quarterback driven league, and they have more questions than answer at the most important position.
No, absolutely. Say, well, let's see. They'll have another chance to hopefully figure it out next year. Let's see. I'm not sure. I think the Vikings have their. They should have their first next year. I think it was just this year that they didn't have their first. Yeah, it was just last year that they didn't have their first. They do have it this year. So we'll see what direction they go. We'll see if do they go another rookie quarterback or maybe do they package up those picks and if a guy like for example Kyler Murray becomes available, do they go with a more proven vet to try to get some spark back into this team?
That's actually an interesting question. I don't. You know what? It would. I could see them looking at Kyler Murray. Although I don't know. I think that Kyler is. He's certainly an entertaining player. I never really viewed him as a franchise player. I thought that your success level with him as your quarterback, there was always a ceiling, and that ceiling usually was you were just good enough to not make the playoffs. I don't think Kyler. I think Kyler's just too small, and everything he has to do has to be more when plays are broken for him to be effective. He's rarely the kind of guy that can drop back, go through his reads, and eat you alive. That's not what he does. I don't think Kyler Murray's long for this league in terms of being a franchise quarterback. Although I never thought he was. I think he's entertaining, but every team's goal is to win a Super Bowl. You're not winning the Super Bowl if Kyler Murray's your quarterback.
Nah, absolutely. But at the same time, that just it just feels like the Vikings like move to make if he becomes available, or some like higher level vets available. It because if they struggle again next year, I feel like everybody's safe this year. Obviously, there might be some changes on the coaching staff, but I think guys like KOC, I think the general manager is safe this year. If you go for another rookie and let's say you strike out or you try JJ McCarthy again and he struggles, maybe all of a sudden next year after next year you're not so safe. So it feels like there might be some pressure on them to turn this around quickly, especially after just winning 15 games last year. So I could see them, pivoting and going, "Oh, we need to win now. You know what? Let's go get a guy like Kyler to try to elevate our ceiling short term, and we'll figure out a long term quarterback later."
Oh, I'm not saying they wouldn't do it. I mean, I'm just saying I wouldn't do it. But no, I'm with you that the Vikings, because of the success they just had, knowing what Brian Flores is going to do with your defense and the weapons they already have, all you need is comparable quarterback play. Look, Kyler can give you that. Um, I I don't I don't know if he can lead you to 13, 14 wins. I doubt it, but he's certainly an upgrade from JJ.
Absolutely. The other big NFL news we had is Darius Slay. He hit waivers, got claimed by the Bills, and now in the same vein as Jair Alexander, he's stepping away to see if he wants to continue playing. Which kind of leads me to this question, Mo, because we know some of these vets, they just kind of want to pick their own location, and when they ask for their release, they don't really want to get claimed off waivers by certain teams. Say clearly, Darius. It doesn't seem like Darius Slay wants to be in Buffalo. It didn't seem like Jair was too eager to go to, Philadelphia. Do you think maybe after a certain amount of years, some of these like vets in the league, it would be maybe fair to them if they didn't have to go through waivers, just let them hit free agency and kind of pick where they want to go?
Look, I think if you've been in the league for an established amount of time, like both guys, yeah, I kind of like the idea that you know that the vet can turn around and make a decision on their own. Like I've been released and I've cleared waivers, and they can kind of control their own fate. Um, I kind of like that, honestly. I'm not sure that the powers that be, the competition committee would agree with that, but I think that's something that would make I think that would make the NFL that much more interesting. It's not free agency, but it would have a feel to it, right? If a veteran who's an 8 or 9 year veteran but can still play is put on waivers, but they still have football in them, that they can turn around and go, let me go play for the Eagles or let me go play for the Packers because I know I fit in what they do. I kind of like that.
Oh, fair enough. Say, Keon Coleman situation. Are you talking about the Cam Newton randomly going on an impassioned rant about Keon Coleman? I'm sorry, but that was hilarious to me. Like, there are so many players to go on rants about in the NFL, and you just set your sights on on Keon Coleman. Now, granted, Keon Coleman kind of brought it on him, kind of brought some attention to himself by all of a sudden being a healthy DNP, and just all of a sudden just being forced to sit out games seemingly due to disciplinary issues. But the fact that Cam Newton had enough and just went on a rant on Keon Coleman is, to me, it's just a funny thing to do because that is one player I didn't expect to get so much attention.
I didn't see Cam's rant. Now I'm sad that I missed it.
Yeah, it's just, I don't know. It's just, he's just such a weird player in the sense that obviously he was always going to be a big piece of what the Bills wanted to do going into the season. So he'd get
For
talked about a
sure.
little bit. I just never expected him to get this much attention. It's, to me, it's kind of funny. Say, yeah, obviously, Mo, we got like 5 minutes left. I wanted to throw in a little WWE talk right at the end.
Sure.
It's something interesting, right? John Cena had an interview ahead of his final match next Saturday, and I found it interesting that apparently he said that he wanted to work. Well, he said 220 dates, just like the old days. Well, that one final full time run, but WWE said, "Now we only need you for 35."
Hmm.
I just find that so interesting because you'd think WWE would be like, "You want to work like every date, in the year? Great, awesome. Even if you're just there to talk, we know you'll sell out arenas and move a ton of merch." So I just found it interesting that Cena was like, "Hey, I want to work every date for you guys," and they're like, "Nah, we good. We don't need you that much."
I'm a little surprised that they would say that because, to your point, it's John Cena. He's got a huge following. Even if he just came out and spoke, his words would move merchandises. It would bring fans to shows. It would raise ratings on Netflix. That is strange that they would. I don't know why you would distance yourself from one of your greatest superstars when he's offering to work more on his last tour of duty. yeah, it doesn't really make sense to me. And look, if you're the WWE and you claim to love the fans the way you do, more of John Cena would be beneficial to the fans. You know what I mean? So I don't understand that way of thinking at all.
It's one of those things you feel like if he worked maybe a couple extra days too, would help him get into more of a rhythm in the ring sooner. Obviously in the beginning of his run, it seemed like he was a little rusty, and maybe you can attribute some of that to him trying to work as a heel for the first time in forever.
Right.
But we've seen the matches he's had at the end of his run, and it makes you think like, well, maybe if you had a couple more matches, for example, on the road to WrestleMania, or even a couple extra, after you would think that maybe it would help them get into a rhythm a little sooner. But like I said, I just found that odd that he offered to work more, and they're like, "Nah, we don't need that." So
Yeah, that's crazy.
yeah, so I get not wanting to. I get the idea maybe of not wanting him to get hurt and just to have him, available and being able to do his entire retirement tour. But speaking of his retirement tour, he had his last PLE Survivor Series was this past Saturday. Mo, what did you think of Survivor Series?
Um, I thought it was pretty good. Look, it's not the best that I've seen. But I thought it had some good moments. Him again being the great performer that he is, willing to take the L for Dom. I love that Cena is always pushing younger wrestlers forward, and you knew he was going to do it, Brett, because you knew like winning the IC belt was just something that he could put on his mantle that he hadn't done. So he didn't care he had no problem giving that belt up, right? Um, and the way they did it was entertaining, right? We get the return. Uh, her name escapes me now.
Liv Morgan.
Liv, and I love Liv. Liv comes out, and it's weird because she did a Cena to Cena, right? It's I'm hugging him, and then the crazy look comes in her eyes. Which, by the way, for Liv, that's really easy. And it played out perfectly. And Dom, being Dom, finds a way to win, and all of a sudden, every time you think the Judgment Day is done, they've got like 9 lives, like a cat. They keep going.
The Judgment Day is insane to me because, like, you think about it, Edge started the Judgment Day, got kicked out of the Judgment Day, feuded with the Judgment Day, left WWE, like became Adam Copeland, went and filmed like an entire season of Percy Jackson, came back as Cope, went and filmed another season of Percy Jackson, and the Judgment Day are still around. Like at this point, I'm convinced like the world's gonna be ending. I'm gonna turn on the TV one last time, and I'm just gonna see the Judgment Day.
Yeah, they're survivors, man. Every time I'm thinking, okay, they're done, they're not relevant no more. Nope. Dom's the IC champion. I wouldn't be surprised if Finn and company become the tag belt, win the tag belts back again. Liv Morgan is clearly going to be in the women's championship picture. I don't know whose belt she's going to take, but at some point, Liv is going to be wearing gold again. So yeah, the Judgment Day just won't die.
Yeah, overall, actually, I was actually underwhelmed by Survivor Series a little bit. I think my biggest problems weren't more so with the like. For example, I thought Cena and Dom was fine. Like 27 Judgment Day members running almost felt excessive. I almost wish they kind of skipped to the Liv run in, but I guess the double AA spot was cool. So I'm like, all right, whatever, I can live with that. Stephanie and Nikki, it happened. That's all I can really say about that match. But it felt like the disappointment was in the War Games matches. It just didn't feel like a War Games match. The women's War Game was fine, but it felt like a match that you could have just done without the cage. Like you could have done that as like a 5-on-5 traditional Survivor Series match, and nothing would have changed outside of EO's trash can spot, which is cool, but this is the 4th year in a row you've done it. So it's one of those things where you're like, okay, overall, it just doesn't really fit the spirit of War Games. The men's it really just didn't feel like anybody would. It just didn't feel like there's any cohesiveness with either team, and it just kind of felt awkward. Like everybody run in, hit your big spots, and then Brock's gonna come in and clean house and go home. It just felt completely underwhelming with the War Games matches, and I really hope that next year, if they don't have a legitimate feud for War Games, don't bring back War Games. This is starting to almost become in the same vein as when they were running it. Hell in a Cell has its own pay per view, and Hell in a Cell lost to Leicester. It's starting to feel like we're trending that direction with War Games, and I really don't want to see that. So I think next year, maybe take a year off of War Games to let it recover and bring that hype back around it.
I think War Games has become bore games. I think it's boring, and I think you bring up a great point. If you're not going to develop a real feud, a real dislike, and the stories connect, it doesn't work. I thought both War Game matches, honestly, to me, Brett, they felt like matches that they could have had on Netflix on Monday. You know what I mean? Like they felt like that, like a TV main event, and less like a pay-per-view main event. And that should never happen. When fans are paying money to watch you, it's supposed to feel like something special, and it didn't feel like something special. And even the wrinkle at the end where the guy comes in dressed in black and who was it? And um, I felt like they did that like spur of the moment. You know what I mean? Like I think they literally were watching the match that we were watching, and they were like, "We got to do something." You know what I mean? And even that didn't really do anything. It just brought up questions of, I think it was Austin Theory, or it was, I don't know who it was. I'm pretty sure, but I would be disappointed if it was Austin Theory. I'm like, when did you suddenly bring in a guy who's irrelevant and try to make him important? That wouldn't make sense at all.
They're trying to sell it like, was it Seth Rollins? And you're just like, brother, Seth Rollins hasn't moved like that since the Authority days. Like, that is
Right,
not Seth Rollins. I promise
right.
you that much.
Somebody asked me, I'm not kidding, on TikTok they were saying, was it The Rock? And I was like, he can't move that quick anymore. No, no. I was like, he would have struggled just climbing over the cage. It wasn't him. Whoever it was, they were young enough and agile enough that they could do that. So anybody that's thinking it's one of the older wrestlers, no, it's not.
Somebody did that to me too. They're like, you think it's Jericho? I'm like, do you think Jericho is getting up the cage that quickly?
Right, right. No, no.
Say also, I guess one last thing before we get on out of here, man. If Jey Uso doesn't want to be known as an entrance merchant or an entrance guy, don't run back your entrance in the middle of War Games. Like, he did that whole speech of, oh, I got to go back to my old ways, Zeus. I'm more than just an entrance. And then proceeded to run it back in War Games. I'm like, dude, if you want to prove, like, you're not an entrance, you're not just an entrance, don't just run it back in War Games. Like, to me, that I don't really care when he runs it back in all reality. It doesn't bother me as much as most. I just found it ironic that he did that whole spiel, and then it's like, yep, in the middle of the most important match on the pay per view, we're going to run it back.
That's fun. It's funny, but it's facts. Yeah. And then if you watch the Monday night show, what's going on with Jay mentally? Right? Is this one of them things where it's woe is me? I'm a loser. Or, like I don't. They seem to not be able to know what they want to do with him now. Like they hinted at him turning heel, but then they pulled back on that. He lost the opportunity to compete against CM Punk for the title. He lost the opportunity to compete against Cena in his final match. And now you got Jay backstage talking about, well, I'm not going to win. I'm not a win. Like what? I don't know what they're trying to do to him in the storyline.
No, absolutely. That'll be interesting to that'll be interesting to figure out. We'll have to talk about that more on Meaty Boys next week.
For sure.
Say before we get up on out of here, Mo, anything you want to add?
No, thank you, chat. Thanks for getting up with us on a Friday morning. Thanks for being so energetic. Appreciate all the great commentary. Your responses make it easy for us to do our thing. Make sure you check out all the great content we have at Wire to Wire Network. Make sure you check out a great show, Passion and Precision, one of the best podcasts out there. Kyle, Jory do their thing. Catch them tonight. Other than that, thank you guys for joining us. Thank you for being part of the Wire to Wire Network family.
And normally, obviously, we do Meaty Boys Monday and one on Thursday. However, I did try to take next Saturday off, going to an independent wrestling show, also for John Cena's last match. So I'll let you know what time Mo and I will be on next week with, Meaty Boys and one. But if anything, we will be back next week for sure. Like Mo said, check out Passion and Precision. Check us out next Monday for the morning show. It's going to be a great time. Thank you for tuning in. Enjoy this great weekend of rivalry and big football games, and enjoy the rest of your night.